It is Wednesday. It is Hump Day. It's a little bit afternoon. We had some technical difficulties here in the studio today, but I believe, even though I can't see you on the camera, that you all are here and you are listening. So what I will do is just babble a little bit, since our licensed therapist, our favorite licensed therapist, is here, Brandon. It's going to be a little bit of psycho babble, as I will babble on for a second. And thank our sponsor, Done Right TV Studios. Thank you. We have this wonderful podcast facility studio here. It is available for other people who want to come and do podcasts, as we were talking earlier. It is a new studio here in West Davenport that is available. If people are thinking about doing podcasts, please give Done Right a call. Ask for Sunny or Misty, and they should be able to help you out on that. You can also reach Done Right if, for instance, you're in the market for internet services at less cost. And I think everybody right now with inflation is looking to save money, see places where they can cut costs. And I know that Done Right offers more than one service, which means they're saving you time. You don't have to go to this place and call that place and call that place. You can call here, and since they offer more than one service, they can save you time. So if you are not hooked up with a streaming service, or you need internet for security and security cameras, this place can help you with that. Also, even the security cameras themselves, they sell those. So are we live, guys? We have Bret as our producer and Sunny over there. And even though I still can't see you on camera, I know you're here with me. Those of you who have not been here before, not joined us before, this is Brandon Kutmas.
Hello.
I said it right?
Yes.
And you're with go ahead and say the quad.
I'm with a lot of things. I'm with the National Alliance for Mental Illness, NAMI, and I also do have my own private practice in Rock Island, Quad City Behavioral Health Associates. I'm also an adjunct professor at Western Illinois University, and I think that's about it for now.
And you find time to come spend time with us here, and I appreciate that very much. We're going to kind of pick up a little bit from where we left off and talk about the narcissists and talk about the gaslighting. I was talking before we went on air, since we had that extra time, thinking that Alex Murdaugh is the classic narcissist, toxic narcissist, malignant narcissist, and a perfect example that everybody knows of, that people would be able to go, oh yeah, he is a deny till you die kind of guy. Even when the evidence is against him, he's still in the deny mode, which means if it has not been made clear, I think he is guilty. I do think he killed his wife. I do think he killed his son. And hopefully justice is served with whatever is right and the jury decides is right. But from what I've seen, he has lied about so much. So if you can please tell us a little bit more. I think he's on the further extreme end of narcissism, being that he went to that psychopathic, stealing millions of dollars from people, lying about it. Now when he's caught in his lie, he's admitting he was there, so he's changed his location when they were killed. So now that the information has been brought to light, he has adjusted his alibi, his story. But he's admitted, I'm a drug addict. He's admitted, I'm a liar. I'm a thief, but I'm not a murderer. And he wants everybody to believe him. So that's why I'm putting him as someone who's on the extreme scale of narcissism. But please, if you could just fill us in on what it is, how it works, and how do we know when we're dealing with a narcissist?
You've got me at a slight disadvantage because I'm not familiar with this case. I haven't really been watching much TV lately, and so I don't know the particulars about that specific case. But so narcissistic personality disorder is a cluster B personality disorder according to the DSM-5, and what that means is there's a detachment from other people. There's a lack of empathy. They only really are capable of thinking about themselves, and the difference between a a sociopath and a psychopath, which are like, two different subgenres or flavors of narcissists.
Which why you use the word cluster?
Yes. So
there's more than one.
Psychopath. There is no diagnosis for a psychopath. There is no diagnosis for a sociopath. There's just they're just sort of the way that people don't always fit very nice and neat in boxes, and the DSM attempts to do that with a whole litany of different experiences, and so in the interest of being able to have a common language or a shared narrative, the DSM sort of has like this little checkbox that tells you what these all are.
You see me doing the checks.
Yep. And so when people say sociopath or psychopath, sometimes they're used interchangeably. They are not the same thing.
Right.
A sociopath is somebody who typically has they're more aggressive. You can tell that this is somebody you don't want to be around because of the aggression. Whereas a psychopath is much more subversive in the sense that it's not physical aggression. They don't want to get caught. They're much more measured in what they do. But in both instances, there's a complete disregard for other people's rights or well-beings. It never even enters the radar. It's all about them. And so when you look at or when you hear someone say, "Oh, well, that person's a narcissist," sometimes I always kind of I kind of wait for more information, because it's misused a lot, because sometimes there's people who are selfish in this one particular area, but they're super giving in others. And that person isn't a narcissist, but they engaged in narcissist-like behavior at this particular time. So sometimes we do this thing where it's like, well, if this person's bad here, they must be bad everywhere. And so we throw that label out there to describe it, but it's not necessarily accurate clinically. There's the doctor or the clinical way of talking about diagnoses, and then there's the not civilian, but there's the public version of it, and
layman's.
Yeah, and so with that being said, I think that I withhold judgment from anybody I haven't really met, because it is pretty complicated to get into the weeds with diagnosing others. But extreme selfishness across the board. That would be
entitlement
a narcissist
type of a
and then
they're better than other people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And sometimes that there's like grandiosity to it, where it's like very inflated, it's undeserved, and if you just scratch below the surface a little bit, you'll see it's like that person isn't what they project themselves to be, but they're super charismatic, and they really do make you feel like it could be true. And then there's they call them covert narcissists, which don't really do the grandiose thing. They don't really kind of project themselves as this, like, better than everybody. Sometimes they project more of I'm a victim, I'm the victim, and that's what makes them different than everybody, is that everybody's out to get them, and so there's all sorts of different flavors of this, and it gets really hard to kind of like pin people down in generalities.
So someone who's with a sociopath versus psychopath. Is it the psychopath, the one that's more likely to cross over into the violence, and the sociopath? I don't.
So the sociopath is more likely to be like aggressive. Like that's the dude that you see at the Save-A-Lot that stares at you, and if you like acknowledge that he's staring at you, he gets violent.
Okay.
That's a sociopath will have
What you looking at? Why are you looking at me?
They'll have an extensive criminal history, because they don't have that impulse control. The sociopath lacks that impulse control and will just lash out, steal, do whatever it is that they think they need to do to get whatever it is that they want. Whereas a psychopath is much more measured. They know that other people are capable of getting them in the trouble, so they will behave in much more subtle ways that'll keep them appearing as though they're above board.
This is so Alec Murdoch. I mean, it really is the family generations of attorneys And this man even put police lights in his car at one point. They had the sheriff come on and testify. He didn't know he did it, never gave him permission to do it. I mean, but at the same time, he's got this reputation to, and that's what all of this seems to be about, is the reputation to protect. And so believing he's guilty like I do, I believe he went to that extreme to protect the family name at this point.
Protect his name.
Yeah.
It's all about that ego defense. So I'm not a Freudian person at all, but like when you hear professionals talk about narcissists, they'll very commonly use the ego, id, superego model to kind of describe, some of the behaviors that they do. But like the ego defense is like central. Everything is about protecting this mirage that they've spent their entire life building. And if anybody challenges that, they'll get rolled over in one way or another. And it's to protect that ego. And that's when, when you're talking to somebody about maybe a spouse or a loved one that is accused of being a narcissist, and they're like, well, how do I get them to see my way? I'm like, you really don't.
Will.
You really don't. Because their being right is so central to their sense of identity that any sort of fact checking or something gets gets weaponized against them, and then that's when you can see what they call narcissistic rage, which is when you challenge that ego, and that's when you can see even a psychopathic narcissist kind of lose their shit.
Right, and that psychopathic rage is scary. And so Alec Murdaugh again. So when he changed his story and the evidence came out of where the car was, where his phone was, he then blames, or his excuse is his drug addiction, and the pills made him paranoid. And he had paranoid thinking, which made him lie to the police officers as to his whereabouts. Now, isn't that taking responsibility for your actions?
Right? It became something else where he was, again, the victim in this case. Yeah.
So covert has victim, but the other extreme narcissist also has victimization as a component.
As long as it protects the ego.
Interesting. Okay, so the covert is more likely to go to tears versus anger?
Perhaps. Crocodile tears. They don't experience emotions the same way that other people do. So there's another concept called like when we say that they don't have empathy, and you're like, well, this person has empathy. I've seen them have empathy. We have to kind of assess to see, is this real empathy or is this intellectual empathy? Or it doesn't take a genius to know that someone might be sad if they lost their parents, and so they might say what needs to be said to convey that they understand that there's a sense of loss with somebody. When they don't really feel it. They may not understand why someone feels the way they do about loss, but they do know that that's a concept that's out there.
Got it. Almost a mirroring in a way of how the other people are feeling. Could that be right? In
a way, mirroring to me implies that there is sort of a reciprocity where they feel it, but it's really more of like, again, this is sort of a skill set that they develop throughout their lives.
Total faking it.
More or less. Like they develop that through their entire life. Like if they ignore the feelings of others for too long, life gets difficult. And so they sort of adapt to it by learning, like, maybe that is important for me to understand, or to at least check that box and pretend to be like
empathize.
That. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Gaslighting then. Does that fall under just the narcissist? I think you said that last time. Only a narcissist will gaslight.
No.
Oh,
not
okay.
true.
All right. So we need to get that straight.
Yes. So narcissists frequently employ gaslighting as a technique to manipulate others and to kind of put themselves in an advantage or in a place of advantage over others. But but other people can gaslight too. That can be a learned behavior from childhood. You've seen how other people gaslight you, so you might gaslight others. And it's also a way of evading responsibility. So you might be in trouble for one reason or another and not qualify for a narcissistic personality disorder diagnosis, but you could, but it's a behavior that you can still, get caught doing from time to time.
So anybody literally could fall in the trap if they choose to use it as a tool of manipulation.
Yes.
Manipulate.
So a lot of times where I see people lobbying narcissists is at domestic abusers. And a lot of domestic abusers can be narcissistic, but they don't necessarily have narcissistic personality disorder. They could have they could gaslight, but not also have narcissistic personality disorder. It's a weaponized interpersonal style that people can learn through many different ways.
And let's get some examples of gaslighting, because I know what I perceive it to be, and that being one, what someone else could even perceive as a prank, but it's got the maliciousness to it. I guess. It's not intended to be funny so much as it's intended to just be mean. And then the other end of it, of my understanding of gaslighting, would be that, to get somebody trying to get themselves out of, like an Alex Murdaugh, getting himself out of what he did. And so they're actually trying to tell you something that happened that didn't happen, or didn't happen that happened. And it happened. So that's what, and I just feel like there has to be more to it.
Yeah. There is nuance to the definition of gaslighting and and there's a difference between gaslighting and lying, because they're two different things. Somebody can lie to get out of trouble. It doesn't mean they're gaslighting. Gaslighting is sort of intentionally done to make someone feel crazy, to undermine their sense of reality, like what's real and what's not. For an example,
create confusion.
To make you doubt yourself, but also believe that the other person is the source of reality. So, if you got into an argument and this person, cleared the table, in a fit of rage, and then a week later, they complain about how you messed up the kitchen. And you're like, that was you. You're the one who cleared the table. That's not what happened. That's gaslighting. And so it's a lie, but it's not told specifically just to get out of trouble. It's told to maintain power and control, and it's to make you doubt your sense of reality. And it's pervasive. It isn't a one-off thing. Someone who gaslights will gaslight a lot, and because it works for them. And so that example sort of, again, it's sort of a domestic violence type thing. That's why you see it a lot in domestic violence or domestic abuse. It makes the victim feel like they're stuck. Nobody will believe them. They don't even believe themselves. And so what chance do they have leaving?
So if I understand, to a degree, gaslighting can be just learned behavior, and something that somebody then does to manipulate other people to get their desired end result or agenda. Yes.
Whereas a lie is really a knee-jerk response to avoid either hurting somebody else's feelings or to avoid getting yourself in trouble. There's many reasons why people lie, but it's not gaslighting. Gaslighting, the purpose behind it is to make you question your reality.
All right. So if somebody, like in the practical, and doing a prank on somebody, and holds fast to the practical joke and doesn't come out right away and say, ha ha ha, is it a practical joke or is it gaslighting? When does that cross over? Because that person is still going to stand on it was just a joke. You didn't take it right. And so that's gaslight. As I say it out loud, what I'm hearing is gaslighting again.
Yeah, my question would be, was it a joke? Was the purpose of the joke for fun? Or was the purpose of the joke, or was there even a joke? And were you gaslighting? And now that you're being called out on it, are you now trying to, evade that sort of accusation by saying it's a joke and you just didn't take it like you were supposed to. That would be gaslighting.
Well, anybody I've told about the situation always says gaslighting, except the person that I confronted about the situation who said it was a prank or a joke. So that's why, like I said, even as I say it out loud, I hear gaslighting.
Yeah. And even if it were a joke, it's not very funny.
It wasn't. It wasn't at all. And that's, I think I have a good sense of humor, but it wasn't funny at all, the situation. So let me check where we are on time because we started a little late, but I think we're okay. Anything else on narcissism, gaslighting that we need to get out while we're having a good conversation that you can think of?
Well, I personally like to talk to people about what they can do about, like if they find themselves in a relationship in some way, shape, or form with the narcissist. And one of the more common prescribed methods of sort of like, living with that is something called gray rocking. Are you familiar with gray rocking?
As in the color gray?
Yeah.
No, please tell me more.
So it's supposed to sound plain and nondescript, right? Gray rock, like a gray rock. It's not very flashy. It doesn't catch your eye. It doesn't catch your attention. But if you assume the position of a gray rock in a narcissist's life, they will, that will sort of take some of the heat off of you. Narcissists will have this thing that people refer to as supply. Yes. They need someone to feed that ego. And that can be anybody. You're nothing special to them because they could always get it from somebody else. But in the moment, you might be the one that is supplying them, and they're getting that supply from you. And that's when you're not a gray rock, you're a shiny rock to them.
And supply. Please explain what you mean by supply.
The sense of importance, the sense of power, like anything that like you could be like arm candy to them, and just something that boosts their sense of status. Like you fill in their backstory the way they want you to fill in their backstory. And if you if you continue to try to fight against that and try to be like, well, he was so nice in the beginning, I think I can change him. No, you're not. He doesn't care that much for you. He doesn't care for you at all. It's really what you do for him. And as soon as he finds that supply from someplace else, because his interests sort of shift, that's where he's going. But it might also, if that dries up, he might come back to you. So gray rocking is a method of just sort of, limiting communication. You respond without emotion to. It doesn't matter how wild it is that you're, what you're getting. They're not going to tell you the truth. They're not going to. It doesn't matter to them. So don't argue with them. Don't fight with them. Just sort of being like, okay, if you're communicating about like, children drop off and pick up and stuff like that. They may make some grandiose statements to look like, parent of the year or something. Let them. Don't fight it. Don't challenge it, because it's not going to get you anywhere good. It's just going to make you the subject of more of this sort of gaslighting, and it's just going to make things more painful for you.
I call it milk toast. You like milk toast?
That's a good way. Yeah. Yeah.
You're just there.
Yeah, you're just there. It doesn't have to be more than that, because it will never be more than that, and it means more to you than it does to him. Without question.
Yeah, the supply. I've used the emotional vampire. And then I've also heard a phrase, suicide by narcissist, where the narcissist is not the one doing it, but they have been involved with someone. And so they end up committing suicide. We just got our 5 minute. Thank you, Bret. Okay. They end up committing suicide because that narcissist made them feel crazy.
And that's part of the danger of that that gaslighting, because if you get told over and over and over again that you're crazy, that you're worthless, no one will ever love you, over time you believe it, and then as soon as you stop being their supply, or they start getting something better from someplace else, they take that from you. And if you don't have that support system, which almost always gets alienated from you in the course of a relationship with the narcissist, you are alone. and everything is in ruins, and that one person was your one source of it all, and now they're gone. They don't care. And that hurts.
Yes.
That hurts. And so there's definitely real danger with choosing to stay in some sort of a relationship like that with the narcissist.
So someone comes out the other side, and they're feeling crappy about themselves for a lot of different reasons. Don't trust themselves. Don't trust anybody else. And that's where they spend a lot of time. How can they, I guess the biggest thing would be learning to trust yourself again, to not, because we talked about this before, but it wasn't on air. You don't pick the narcissist picks you.
Yes.
And that, I think, getting that right off the bat, it's nothing you did,
right,
except for be a shining light, be something they wanted, that helped them accomplish a goal. And so take it as a compliment, as sucky as it is.
Yeah, it's not, again, it's like you were a shiny geode amongst a sea of gray rocks, and they picked you up. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's that there's always excitement in the beginning of a new relationship. The best foot forward type of thing is always fun and exciting. And unfortunately, we get tricked into thinking that that's the real them. And most relationships will start like that. That's the other caveat. One of the dangers of being around a narcissist is they will act like people typically would in their first couple dates. You know, everybody tries to put their best foot forward. Everyone tries to be maybe a bit more grandiose than they typically are if they're trying to impress you. But that doesn't make them narcissists. But because there's so much similarities there, it's really hard to get back into dating and stuff like that afterward, because you will see these behaviors and that will trigger. And you're just that's just your body trying to keep you safe.
Okay. I know, I can think of someone real easily that I know he's been struggling for a while now. And if there was any advice you could give him on getting out there again. He's in a rural community, doesn't get to meet a lot of people. And she did. She took his heart, she held it in her hands, she watched it beat and dropped it on the ground and kept moving.
See a therapist. A therapist is going to be trained to help you rebuild that. In the beginning, you're going to trust the therapist to be the end all be all, or maybe you won't. But they have that specific training that'll help you slowly regain that independence, so that you can learn to trust yourself. A good therapist isn't going to tell you what the reality is for you. They will help you see that your reality for yourself, and then over time you can pick up the pieces and move on.
I have a lady friend that I've watched get into therapy and seen how she has grown in leaps and bounds in a few years. I'm also of that generation that private people, therapy, I'm sure there's worse things you could say at dinner, but I'm a pregnant teenager at 15 maybe. But I really, so for my generation, bottom line and older, therapy was not accepted. It wasn't something we did. And I believe, in looking back, it has not necessarily worked for me. So if I could go back in time and do it over again, some of those pivotal points in life when things happened, it would have been nice to have that objective observer to go talk to. And basically, I don't want to claim to understand. We only got a couple more minutes. But if you could even just explain therapy to someone like me that doesn't necessarily understand what it's about. And we got to go. Can he finish that? I'll let him finish that.
In a nutshell, if relationships can be damaging, relationships can be healing. And a therapist has some training, very specific, extensive training in how to formulate these healing relationships. And that's therapy in a nutshell. It's a healing relationship. The therapist isn't going to fix you. They're going to create the conditions necessary so that you can fix yourself.
I like that. So if someone come from an environment where they weren't given all the tools, only thing they have the hammer, they're coming to you and you're helping them. And it's a process. It doesn't happen in one session or one visit.
Unfortunately not.
Okay. So that means you got to come back and talk to me some more.
I'd love to.
Transition that way to being finished up with this, because we do want to keep it at a shorter time where it's easier for people to find the time to listen. I think there was a lot of gold nuggets in the conversation today. Just some really good stuff.
Thank you.
Starting with a basic understanding of some of this stuff to where people aren't questioning themselves so much, maybe, or doubting themselves and just walking around feeling confused. Before you say you're depressed or whatever, look at the people around you. Is that what they say?
Yeah. Make sure you're not surrounded by a bunch of assholes first.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. It's not okay to be around a bunch of assholes.
I'll drink to that.
So on that note, we're going to sign off today. Again, want to thank Done Right Studios. Want to thank you, Brandon. You can be reached at Quad City Behavioral
Health
Associates in Rock Island. Also through NAMI. You're on the board with NAMI, so if people want to get involved with NAMI, there's always volunteer opportunities with that. You have a good walk that you guys do and raise money so you can support the community and mental health, right?
Absolutely.
So on that note, we're going to be back next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, I have a guest. Her page is called Coffee with People I Don't Know. So she's going to come and we're going to have coffee. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. It seems to fit. Everybody else, I hope you have a great week. Thank you, Bret. Thank you, Brandon. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.
Peace out.